Okay, so real quick, picture a wealthy person in your head. Go ahead, I'll wait. You're probably imagining someone in a flashy car, checking their portfolio on a yacht, or dropping $800 on a dinner without blinking, right? That's the image we've been sold. But here's the thing, that picture is almost completely wrong. The people who are actually building serious, lasting wealth, most of them are driving normal cars. They're not obsessing over their stock ticker every 5 minutes. They're not white-knuckling their way through every purchase with iron willpower. And they're definitely not living like monks who've taken a vow of poverty. So what is going on with them? Because here's what's wild. Economists at the University of Chicago Booth School did deep research into long-term wealth accumulation, and what they found completely flipped the script. The best predictors of financial success weren't income level. They weren't even financial literacy, like actually knowing how compound interest works. The strongest predictors were behavioral patterns, habits, neurological tendencies, the way certain brains process time, reward, and decision-making. And that changes everything about how we should be thinking about money. Because if it's not about willpower, if it's not about being smarter or working harder or just wanting it more, then what is it actually about? What's happening inside the brains of people who seem to effortlessly build wealth, while the rest of us are stuck in the same cycles, month after month? That's exactly what we're digging into today. We're talking neuroscience, we're talking psychology, and yeah, we're going to get a little weird with it. Let's go. Chapter 1. The Willpower Myth. All right, first, let's kill the willpower myth once and for all, because this idea has done serious damage to a lot of people's financial lives. Here's what your brain is actually doing. You've got this region called the prefrontal cortex. It's the front part of your brain, right behind your forehead. This is your decision-making headquarters. It handles planning, impulse control, and weighing consequences. It's basically the responsible adult living rent-free in your skull. But here's the catch. It gets tired. Every single decision you make throughout the day draws from the same limited pool of mental energy. You decide what to wear, what to eat, how to respond to that passive-aggressive email from your coworker. All of that is quietly draining your prefrontal cortex. And by the time you're standing in a store at 7 p.m., exhausted after a full day, your decision-making center is running on fumes. That's exactly when you make purchases you regret. So if you've ever beaten yourself up for having no willpower around money, stop. Your brain has a hard biological limit. Willpower is not infinite. It was never going to save you. But here's where it gets interesting. There's this concept in behavioral economics called delayed discounting. And once you understand it, you'll start seeing it everywhere. The basic idea is this. Your brain naturally values things right now way more than things in the future. Like mathematically, irrationally more. $1 today feels more real and more valuable than $1 10 years from now. Even if logically, that future dollar could be worth $3 with compound growth. Your brain doesn't care. Your brain is wired for the present. And here's where people who manage money exceptionally well are neurologically different. Their delayed discounting curves are flatter. When they imagine money in the future, it feels almost as vivid and real as money in their hand right now. Future security isn't abstract to them, it's concrete, it's already theirs in some neurological sense. But, and this is the key insight, the truly skilled ones don't rely on this advantage alone. They build systems that remove financial decisions from their daily mental load entirely. Savings get automatically transferred, bills get auto-paid, investments are on a schedule. They've essentially engineered money out of their decision-making pipeline, which means their prefrontal cortex never has to fight that battle in the first place. They're not stronger than you. They just stopped relying on strength. Chapter 2. The Weird Math of the Wealthy Brain. Okay, so now let's talk about something that sounds simple but is actually a really powerful neurological hack. When most people look at a price tag, their brain processes it as a raw number. $60, $200. The number sits there, and you feel some vague sense of whether that's a lot or not that much, based on vibes mostly. But financially skilled people? Their brains automatically convert that number into something more meaningful. They're not seeing $60, they're seeing 1.5 hours of their time, or 0.3% of their monthly income, or the equivalent of what that money would be worth in an index fund in 20 years. That automatic translation is huge, because now you're not deciding whether $60 is a lot of money in some abstract sense. You're deciding whether this thing is worth an hour and a half of your life. And that question hits completely differently. What's actually happening neurologically is that this translation process engages an analytical pathway in the brain. It interrupts the emotional, impulsive response and forces a moment of rational evaluation. You literally cannot do that math and stay in pure impulse buy mode at the same time. And here's where it gets paradoxical, and I love this part. These same people who automatically run those calculations will agonize over a $5 bag of coffee. Like, genuinely stress about it. Meanwhile, they can make a $10,000 investment decision in about 45 seconds. How does that make any sense? It actually makes perfect sense once you understand their mental model. That $5 coffee isn't just $5, it's a pattern. It's $5 3 times a week, 52 weeks a year, which is $780 annually, which is, after 30 years of compound growth, potentially thousands of dollars. Small, recurring purchases aren't single decisions to them, they're policies. And you don't adopt a policy casually. The $10,000 investment, on the other hand, that decision was already made. Not in that moment, but months or years ago, when they decided what percentage of their income goes into investments automatically. They're not actually making a decision. They're just executing a pre-existing plan. That's the weird math of the wealthy brain. And you can start doing it too, right now, with any purchase. Just ask yourself, how many hours of my life did I trade for this? The answer might surprise you. Chapter 3. The Pain of Debt and the Dopamine of Saving. Here's something that blew my mind when I first came across it. Researchers using functional MRI scans, the technology that lets you watch a brain light up in real time, found that for certain people, thinking about debt activates the same neural regions as physical pain and threat detection. Not metaphorical pain, actual neurological my brain thinks I'm in danger pain. Now, for most people, debt is uncomfortable, stressful, you don't love thinking about it, but for people with this heightened sensitivity, debt is neurologically intolerable. Their brain treats it like a wound that needs to be closed immediately. And that unconscious drive? It becomes a powerful engine for paying things off fast. But the dopamine piece is where it gets really fascinating. You know how buying something new gives you that little rush? That dopamine hit when you get a package in the mail, or walk out of a store with a new pair of shoes. That's your brain's reward center doing its thing. It's totally normal. We're all wired for that. But here's what's different about exceptional money managers. Somewhere along the way, their reward circuitry got rewired. They get that same dopamine response, that same genuine neurological pleasure, from watching their savings balance go up, from seeing compound interest work, from hitting a net worth milestone. The thrill of buying something new fades fast. You already know this. The new thing becomes the normal thing within days, sometimes hours. Psychologists call it hedonic adaptation. Your brain just resets to baseline, and now you need the next new thing to get that hit again. It's a treadmill. But watching your wealth grow, that satisfaction doesn't fade the same way, because it's always moving. There's always a new number, a new milestone, a new percentage. The game never ends, which means the reward never fully plateaus. Once your brain learns to find pleasure in accumulation rather than acquisition, the whole financial game changes. You stop fighting your instincts and start running with them, just in a completely different direction. Chapter 4. Time Travel and Effective Forecasting. Okay, I want to tell you about a study out of Stanford that I think about all the time. Researchers used virtual reality to show people aged-up versions of themselves, like a realistic simulation of what you'd look like at 65 or 70. And what they found was remarkable. After spending time with their future selves, people's saving behavior changed significantly. They started making more long-term financial decisions. They contributed more to retirement accounts. They delayed gratification more easily. Why? Because their future self stopped being a stranger. When your future self feels like a vague, distant, theoretical person, some abstract entity who'll deal with retirement eventually, it's really easy to deprioritize them. You wouldn't give money to a stranger on the street instead of keeping it for yourself, right? But that's basically what you're doing every time you choose present spending over future saving, if you don't feel connected to who you'll become. People who are naturally great with money, they have this vivid, real connection to their future self without needing a VR headset. When they're about to make a financial decision, they're not just thinking about what they want right now. They're genuinely asking, does 65-year-old me wish I had invested this instead? That question changes everything. Because suddenly you're not just an individual making a personal choice, you're a steward of someone else's future. And your brain treats that very differently. But it goes even further than that. There's a psychological concept called affective forecasting. It's your brain's ability to predict how you'll feel about something in the future. And highly skilled money managers have a turbocharged version of this ability. They experience buyer's remorse before they make the purchase. Seriously. They can mentally simulate the whole arc, the excitement of buying, the brief satisfaction, the fade, the eventual why did I spend that money feeling. And they feel all of that preemptively before they've even handed over their card. That future regret acts like a natural brake on impulsive spending. It's like having a preview function for your emotions. And once you know this is a trainable skill, you can start practicing it yourself. Before any significant purchase, just run the simulation. Fast forward in your head. Will future you be glad you did this? Or will future you wish you'd let it go? Chapter 5. The Dark Side. Alright, look, I've been making this all sound pretty great, and in a lot of ways it is. But I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't talk about the shadow side of this neurology. Because there absolutely is one. A lot of highly disciplined savers practice something psychologists call defensive pessimism. Basically, they're constantly running mental simulations of worst-case financial scenarios. Job loss, market crash, medical emergency. They're not doing this because they're naturally anxious people. They're doing it as a preparation strategy. If they've already mentally lived through the catastrophe, they won't be caught off guard by it. The problem? Those mental simulations don't stay neatly in a box. They bleed into everyday life as chronic, low-grade financial anxiety. Even when these people are objectively, undeniably financially secure, their brains are still running the disaster scripts. They can't fully turn it off. And then there's the guilt. Because when your brain has spent years associating saving with virtue and spending with failure, even legitimate spending starts to feel wrong. Taking a nice vacation, buying something you genuinely want and can absolutely afford, treating yourself or someone you love. These things, which should feel good, get filtered through a lens of guilt and internal conflict. Their brain says, this is waste, this is weakness, you should have invested this, that's not freedom. That's a different kind of trap. And socially, it gets complicated. Because these people are often deeply resistant to what's called lifestyle creep, the natural tendency to upgrade your life as your income grows. Their brain is anchored to a baseline, and deviation from that baseline feels genuinely wrong, not just financially irresponsible. And when the people around them are spending freely, going on trips, buying things, there's real friction, real disconnect, sometimes real resentment from both sides. The point isn't that these habits are bad. They're incredibly powerful. But like any strength taken to an extreme, they have costs. And pretending otherwise isn't honest. Chapter 6. Hacking your neurology. So where does this leave you? First, and I really mean this, you are not broken. If you struggle to save, if future rewards feel abstract, if the dopamine hit of buying something is way louder than the quiet satisfaction of watching your account balance grow, that's not a character flaw. That's just how your particular brain processes time and reward. It's wiring, not weakness. But here's the good news. You don't have to rewire your entire brain to get better financial outcomes. You just have to build systems that compensate for your wiring. If your brain discounts the future heavily, automate your savings so the decision never lands on your plate. Set it up once, then forget it. Future you gets funded automatically, and present you never has to fight that battle. If impulse spending is your thing, add friction. Make it harder to spend. Delete saved payment info. Put a 48-hour rule on anything over a certain dollar amount. Make your brain work for the impulse rather than against the restraint. If you want to strengthen your connection to your future self, try writing a letter from your 70-year-old self back to you right now. It sounds cheesy. Do it anyway. It works. And if you want to start building that personalized brain, start converting prices. Not obsessively, just occasionally. How many hours did you trade for this? What would this be worth in 20 years? Start asking the question, and over time, your brain will start asking it automatically. Here's the honest truth about all of this. Neither the aggressive saver nor the present moment spender is objectively better. They're different bets. One trades present joy for future security. the other trades future security for present joy. There's no universally correct answer. There's only the question of what you actually want your life to look like, and whether your current behavior is pointing you in that direction. The goal isn't to become a financial robot. The goal is to understand your own neurology well enough to work with it, instead of constantly fighting against it. Because the battle isn't between you and your bank account. It's between the part of your brain that lives in the moment and the part that can imagine the future. And once you understand that, once you really get it, you can stop trying to win that fight through sheer force of will and start building a life where both parts of you actually get what they need. That's the real secret. It's not discipline, it's design. If this kind of deep dive into behavioral psychology and how it connects to real life is your thing, hit subscribe, because this is exactly the kind of content we're going to keep making. More neuroscience, more counterintuitive research, more "wait, I never thought about it that way" moments. That's the whole point. See you in the next one.